Hello, my loves. I hope you're well. I am well. And today I'm making a tiny wedding cake. Or it was supposed to be tinier than this, but I just decided to do a tall cake. That is what I was going for at least. And I started here by just preparing some love heart from a chocolate mold. And what I did was paint the mold in gold dust, and then added white chocolate. So I'm hoping that when I remove it, it will be a nice solid gold. And then we can join the two hearts or the two halves by melting just the edges in a pan and joining them together. So that is what I started with so that I could allow that to dry up. And I had already baked the cakes using the vanilla cake method, but I made orange, lemon, and red velvet out of it. And here, because I want to have a card to sandwich the cake, just for extra flavor, I'm making a lemon and orange curd. I would have preferred to have the orange rind instead of the lemon, but the lemon was, had more of a coating than the oranges. So I'll have both the orange and lemon juice. So I grated that and kept it aside. Got 12 egg yolks and added the rind, the juice of both the lemon and orange, and some sugar, about a cup of sugar. And so I'm going to cook it down until it thickens. With this one, you don't even need to thicken with flour because the eggs just coagulate and thicken. And the sugar also helps to get a very thick curd. So once I've cooked it down until that thick texture or thick consistency, I'm going to sieve it, of course, so that, get rid of that rind as well as the egg, bits. Yeah, so you have to be careful when you're doing this. It takes so longer than I'm showing here, of course, because you have to stir it very slowly so that you don't cook the egg, but you have it, in a way, pasteurized through the cooking process and thickening. So I have my curd layer there, and I'll just cover it to not form a layer and place it in the fridge. In the meantime, I'm just removing the tops of my cakes. These cakes baked well, and they are a bit higher than I would have liked because I was meant to make just a shorter cake so that I could carry it in a cooler to the venue. And but it came out, a bit taller. I did want to cut it, because I love tall cakes, but this is the work that had to go into it. And so after cutting that, I'm going to sandwich these cakes, and I'm starting with the red velvet only because it's a deeper color. And then I'll layer or spread a bit of my buttercream as well as make a dam for my curd. So that's what I'm doing here. So the curd is supposed to just give a more citrusy taste or flavor to these cakes. So that is why I'm adding cakes on all layers. The curd. I'm sorry, the curd on all layers. So we'll have that layer with buttercream and that lemon and orange curd, and then we'll repeat that again and then crumb coat. So that we can, return our cakes to the freezer, have it get very cold before we add the top layer, which is just going to be plain. And then we will add some fondant details. So it seems my dough was not high or thick enough because some of that curd was trickling out. but I tried to manage it. And I think, having it in the freezer will contain it, but it's very important to have a very strong dough. So I'm going to repeat the same process with the bigger tier. And I didn't trim because this was a very soft crumb, even though it doesn't look so, but it really was. And I'm going to add some of the dolls on the bottom tier. This will help the top tier to not sink into the bottom tier. And then we're going to have a middle dowel going all the way from the top tier to the bottom. Yeah, so that will help, have our tiers in place. And the center dowel helps to keep the top tier in place so that even when you're traveling or moving the cake, it doesn't budge. So then we crumb coat and keep that in the freezer. We'll put our card in a container. We can use it again. And then once it's very frozen, we're going to come and put on the second layer. I actually just do coats most of the two coats most of the time, because if I layer this very thickly, I can scrape without it being too thin. So I'm going to do that, for add just a very thick layer, and then I'll scrape later and have it, looking all nice and smooth with sharp edges. That's what I'm going for. And this is the method I use, just, lay it on thick. So our two cakes have gone through the process, and I'm just scraping now after freezing. And I'm using this tall scraper. It's metallic scraper that's double-sided. And once I scrape, I'm putting the buttercream in a different container, because this will contain some liquid, and you will see it later as it gets warmer. The liquid, remains on the side, so you don't want to mix it with any other buttercream, even though it is the same, it comes from the same container. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get my surface very nice and sharp. And whenever you're doing this, and you want the sides to be very sharp, but if it doesn't work and you see the cake getting softer, you can return it to the freezer for a bit. And then once you're all done, you have to freeze your cake again, because a season like this can be very tricky when it's summer. Okay, and on the border here, I wanted to add some beaded look, but I thought the silver board wasn't really looking sharp and nice, so I decided to change later. But in the meantime, I'm scraping the smaller tier. By the way, this tier was just 5 inch in width, and I didn't measure the height, but it was quite tall, about 12 inch, because the height of the tins is 4 inches. And I just cut off a bit here when I was, getting ready to sandwich. So 5 by about 12. This is quite tall. Yeah, and it was just too much even for our friends, but it was good. Yeah, people always appreciate extra kick. So this is nice, really nice texture, and it's just perfect to work with. Remember, we put some dolls on the bottom tier, so I'm going to cut off the extra base, yeah, so that when it sits on top of the cake, you won't see that extra, base. And I'm moving the bottom tier to a golden base. Yeah, it's always a gold one, just looks, so much better, but it depends on the theme too. Yeah, but this was not too strict, so I damaged the cake a little, but I'm going to repair. When you're now finishing, you can do a lot of repairs, And when the cake is cold, even when the board separates a little, you can actually press it down. So no need to worry too much. If there damages, you can always repair at this point. And afterwards, you can just, freeze it again. It's so important just to make sure you have the temperatures correct. So the image I'm going to use on this cake, I got off Google. It's not, a picture of them, but it's, like a nice imitation for a couple such as they. And I'm going to add that picture on top and then use some fondant details, to have as the lady's dress. So what I did with this fondant was pattern it using some mat, some fondant mats. So I'm going to have a double layer of the skirt or the bride's dress, and it's going to just cover that guy's suit or the groom's suit, and that's a good way to use fondant. Fondant can actually, just communicate something, beautiful. It's just so much better for the art. And so those are the hats. They're now dry. And although they are so delicate that some were breaking as I tried to take them off the mold, at least I got two, and those were the toppers. I would have loved the initials to be acrylic, but they didn't arrive in time, so I got just white wooden initials from Walmart, so that helps a lot. The baby breath I'm using is fresh, and I know there's always a concern of, sprays that could be used, but I really tried to just get, just fresh flowers and wiped it down a bit because I didn't want to use foil, seeing as the branches are so delicate. So I just, cut it and, just pierced into the cake. We are going to remove this before cutting, but that's how it looks. And that was the process of making it. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Please remember to like and subscribe. Bye.